Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bewindem, and on this channel we talk about how to make money, how to save and invest money towards financial independence, basically with the goal of being able to provide social good in our various communities. And today I wanted to talk about ways that you can allocate your portfolio to try to balance it towards reaching your financial goals. I have thought for a long time that it'll be important to talk about professional development because for a lot of us, our jobs are the way in which we get our income, which is a very important tool towards building wealth. And so for a few videos after this, we'll be talking about how to negotiate a salary, how to ask for a raise, and things like that surrounding work, how to get promoted at work. But before wrapping up, before taking a pause with like directly talking about investments, I wanted to just make a quick video talking about the various ways in which you can allocate your portfolio, whether it's a 401k or a Roth IRA or an account which is not tax advantaged. And we've talked about all these accounts in the past. We've talked about some of the various building blocks that you can use, and I'll link all of those videos in the description below. But today, again, I want to talk about the specific ways in which you can allocate the various types of funds that might exist in your portfolio. So if this is content that you think you'd be interested in, please keep watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video with your family and friends if you think that this would be something that would be valuable for them. Before I go ahead, shout out to all of you who have been sending me messages to, ask for more information or just give a word of encouragement. I appreciate it a lot because, I mean, like getting myself to stay committed to making these videos is not biscuit, and it's very encouraging to know that it's valuable to someone, because otherwise this will be a complete waste of time and I'll just be talking to myself. But it's great to know that y'all are watching and that you find some of it valuable. So thank you again. Thank you for reaching out. I hope that I can continue to be a source of valuable information, and that this channel would be valuable to both of us, keeping me honest on my journey towards financial independence, and also just providing an avenue by which we can share ideas and get to know each other and support each other on the journey. So yeah, now going into allocating your various accounts, right? There are a lot of different ways that you can do it. I think the most general one that usually comes with your 401k or that your company would enroll you automatically is a target date fund. And basically what those are just, you tell the software basically how old you are and when you think you're going to retire, and then based on how close to retirement you are, it gives you a combination of funds that are as aggressive or not as how close you are to retirement. So what that means is if I have 30 years until I retire, it will put me in a more aggressive combination of funds. And then as I get towards retirement, it'll keep changing the combination of funds I have to reduce the risk, so that as I get closer and closer to retirement, my portfolio becomes less and less risky. Now, that's the approach that you should generally use. But target date funds are generic, right? They're not targeted towards you as an individual. So I think that target date funds are a good place to start, but you'd have to pay attention very closely to what the expense fees on them are, and also whether they actually match what you're trying to accomplish by yourself. And then as time goes on and you begin to understand better how the market works, what the different buckets are, you can start to put something together for your personal that matches your risk tolerance more personally and your timeline. So what are the various funds that you would want to look at that can go into a portfolio, and what kinds of percentages should you be including, right? That's going to be the focus of the video today. So if you're not doing a target date fund, what should you be looking at putting into your portfolio, whether an after-tax one or 401k. I like to think of the general funds in the market under a bunch of different subtopics, right? You can think of them as growth funds. Those are the ones that are doing pretty well. You can track their stock prices have been growing historically. You also have aggressive growth funds, which are really growing very quickly, but that can also be very volatile. And then you have growth and income funds, which I talked about in the video last week, which are funds which have generally a high dividend. So the purpose for investing in those would be to have a source of income from their dividends. Maybe not now, but eventually. And then you would have like international funds, which also tend to be a bit more volatile and that you want to be careful with, but that would potentially add, risk to your portfolio, but potentially also increase the kind of returns that you'll see. And then finally, bond funds, which generally would be very stable, but would have a lower rate of return, right? Those are just investing in government bonds, whether US bonds, and in some cases, international bonds. So those are the 5 groups that I like to think of funds in, and generally would build my portfolio to be a combination of those. Now, when it comes down to it, in terms of risk exposure, you'd also be looking at things like whether the companies that are in those various funds are large cap, small cap, or medium cap. And that's just a reference to the size of the company, its overall valuation. And generally what you would see is the large cap funds tend to be, now these days with all the tech companies, it's not super straightforward, but those tend to be like you're more reliable. Like you have the inkling that they're going to keep growing, but they potentially won't grow as quickly. So they add stability to your portfolio in a way. But then the small ones are the ones which are still coming up, but that have potential for a lot of growth, and that could potentially earn you a lot of money in the future. So, you'd be looking at all of these things and then trying to figure out what percentage of which should I put in my portfolio. And, basically characterizing the various things that you're looking at into those various buckets. And then what I do is start out saying, okay, I want this percentage of a portfolio to be large cap because I trust that they're stable, and if shit was to hit the fan, I won't lose everything, all of my money. But then I also want a little bit of medium and small cap to surround those and put support and expose me to a little bit more risk, because that's how I'm going to potentially grow my wealth quicker if those turn out to be very good, right? Similarly, for the growth and income approach, I would start out by saying, I want this percentage of my portfolio to be made up of growth funds. These are the percentage to be made up of growth and income funds, and then surround those with aggressive growth, your international funds, and bond funds, right? And what happens is the growth and income ones tend to be, growth exposes you to a little bit more risk. Growth and income is generally more stable, and you can also use that as a source of income when you eventually decide to start pulling from your investments. And then the international and aggressive growth would expose you to a bit more risk, but then also have the potential for more reward. And then the purpose of having your bond funds would be to kind of stabilize your entire portfolio, because those tend to be less risky. So as you approach retirement, you would want to shift the various percentages that are associated with each of those funds to kind of match where you are in life, what your near-term plans are, so that you don't get to a point in retirement when when there's a possibility that the market isn't doing so well, and then all of your funds, if they're invested in stocks or if they're invested in aggressive growth funds, are down, and you can't afford to start taking money out, because that would make you have to delay your retirement. So it's all a matter of identifying exactly where you are, what your financial goals are, what your timeline is, and what your taste for risk is, and trying to build a portfolio that matches your personal situation. I think in the future I'd be willing to, or like open to sharing some of what I do, But my goal for this channel has really been to try to bring more general information so that people are making personal decisions rather than coming on here and saying put 30% of this and put 20% of this in your various funds. Now, for those who are interested in stocks, that also factors into this calculation, right? You would want to identify very early on, this is a percentage of my portfolio I want to be invested in stocks, and this is the rest of it which I want to be invested in funds. And then as time goes on, you can keep monitoring that portfolio and reallocate things to meet those percentages that you have set for yourself. Now, what does reallocating mean? As I've already pointed out, some of these funds would grow faster than the other. So even if you started out with, let's say, 30% of your fund in general growth funds, and 10%, for example, in bond funds, if the growth funds end up growing faster than the bond funds, you'll find out that within some time, that percentage that you started out with is no longer the case because different things are growing at different rates. So you would want to go in there and do a reallocation just to make sure that your portfolio is what you want it to be. And I have to specify here that it's really important to have a plan and to have an allocation that you've decided that works for you, because it gets very tempting to just be like, well, I heard that this stock is doing so well, so I'm going to go ahead and buy this one. What I've noticed with the market is that it just helps out better to have a plan, to have made up your mind ahead of time that this is what you're going to do, and then try to stick to that. Obviously, if once or twice, if every once in a while you spend a little bit more money investing in things that you're not decided in, I guess that's okay. But the foundation of your portfolio has to be something that you've spent some time coming up with and that you're trying your ultimate best to stick to. Because historically, that's what has worked. And for a lot of people who are successful, they'll show you that that's what they do. Is have a plan and try to stick to it financially, regardless of what everyone around you is doing, regardless of what the market seems to be doing. So that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like. Please leave a comment below if you have any questions, if there's anything that you would like to add, or if there are topics that you would like to see in the future. Don't forget to share with your friends and family so that we can keep talking about these topics. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for watching.